to Open Your Eyes. This is our first conversation this morning, and it's all about BTIA's president speaking on his vision for Tourism 2026. We are joined by Efren Perez. Good morning, Mr. Perez. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having us and for allowing us this space for us to be able to discuss tourism and what we're looking forward to 2026.
Absolutely. It's been quite a busy, I think, first 2 months for you, or month and a half, thereabout. And I know that you assuming presidency, was it last year?
Last year in January.
Last year in January. There's been a lot that has taken place since then.
Yeah.
Let's get a quick overview of that then, what your first year has been like, and then we can go into what the expectations are for tourism in Belize 2026.
Absolutely. I think last year when we started the presidency, it was in January, we pretty much hit the ground running. There were a lot of items that we wanted to accomplish. More than anything else, one of the key things that we continue to work on is that relationship between public and private sector within tourism. We have a really good relationship with them, and also reaching out regionally. As you know, I am the current president for the Federation of Chambers of Tourism of Central America and the Dominican Republic. And so it allows us to really be at that table discussing issues, not only particularly those that impact Belize, but also the entire region, really building the Central American brand also, and really playing a key role in the integration process when it comes to tourism, looking at opportunities for our stakeholders. We participated, and you guys went along with us to the Central American Travel Market, which is one of the largest travel trade shows in Central America that is organized particularly to bring in travel wholesalers and international press to showcase the tourism experience. From there, we also brought in about 40 wholesalers and press to Belize, and we really did a good coverage in terms of the key locations within Belize within 3 days. And so that allows us to really allow the private sector to be able to showcase their products into the international market. This year, what we're trying to do is we're trying to continue that trend, but really starting to focus on what are the needs, particularly in the destinations. I think that if we are to be serious about growing tourism, we have to really start to build a very strong public-private sector relationship, and that doesn't only mean with tourism, it means across the board. And I say that because from the experience that we have just going into the destinations, we have 10 chapters across the entire country, and so we've only managed to do 3 since the start of the year. But within those 3, we're getting a good grasp of what these destinations are looking for. And so, for example, San Pedro, we did San Pedro early January, we did Punta Gorda late January, and just recently we did Hopkins. And all of them are very unique. Every destination is unique. Every destination needs a particular attention to particular areas that are impacting them. In San Pedro, for example, I think one of the key things that resonated was sargassum. As you know, last year we got impacted heavily by sargassum. Through BTIA, we managed to work along with the Ministry of Tourism, and we ended up getting a grant from the Belize Trust for us to be able to sort of help the properties with some additional funds for them to be able to mitigate this sargassum issue. Obviously, this year we have to start again because that's a recurrent issue. Every year it gets worse. Climate change is really upon us now. And so that is one of the areas that really is impacting, for example, San Pedro. Then we have the road conditions leading up north. And it's no secret that there has been accidents of tourists on that road. And so I think, again, that conversation needs to continue. Why? Because apart from having our hoteliers being prepared, apart from the Ministry of Tourism having that culinary certification process, there are other things that interconnect into what is the general tourism. For example, the road is critical. because it's not only the safety of the guests traveling on golf carts on those roads, but also allows, for example, if we have a medical emergency, so that the fire trucks or even the ambulances can get to the north side in a quicker response. And so all of these things play a key role, because, you know, when you are out on vacation, you know, there might be chances that you might get injured. You might twist an ankle, you might, you know, especially those going diving, you know. So all of these things, we have to take it into consideration if we want to continue to grow the industry the way we want.
How does the association bridge the gap between the concerns and the vision of industry stakeholders and input from the governments, and whether it is investment or policy?
Well, one of the key things, like I said, that we're very happy about is the relationship that we've built over the years with the Ministry of Tourism. Minister Anthony Mala has been very, you know, attentive to the needs of the industry and very focused, and so that allows us to have that dialogue. I also sit on the board of the Belize Tourism Board, and so that allows me to be able to give them firsthand the experiences that we're hearing, you know, and most of these reports are channeled to them also, so that they know what is going on the ground, and for us to be able to sit down and really discuss what are these issues and how they can assist through other ministries to get the assistance that we need. Obviously, we know that it's not going to be something that is going to happen overnight, but those steps need to be taken for us to be able to start to see a change. In Hopkins, for example, one of the key things that they had pointed out to us was the clinic. There's not a clinic there that is really, you know, equipped in case of minor emergencies. You know, most of those guests might need to go all the way to Dangriga or maybe Belmopan, you know. And so those are things that I feel, while the industry does cooperate a lot in terms of really fundraising and making sure that they're giving back to certain areas like those, we certainly need to have that deeper conversation in terms of how can we make it work better with these basic services that should be in these destinations, right? It's not only for the guests, it's also for the communities that are there. And so I think all of these are really valid concerns that have been popping up. And so apart from that, we also have, for example, the need for marketing. In Toledo, for example, you know, it's considered as a forgotten destination.
We just had Paul talking about what a wonderful experience he had in Punta Gorda.
Yes.
Right. I mean, on top of your mind, for a regular Belizean, going to PG is not something that will pop up.
It is so far away.
Right.
Yeah.
But PG has a wealth of activities, right? And it's a very unique destination. I mean, compared to, for example, Hopkins or San Pedro or any of the other busy islands, Hopkins, Toledo gives you a more nature-based approach, you know. And so for those adventure seekers, I mean, I would certainly encourage all Belizeans during the Easter season is coming up. So, you know, visit your backyard, visit Toledo, visit Hopkins, you know, these destinations, familiarize yourself with what is out there, you know.
Being in a leadership position with Fedicatur, I imagine there are conversations about the potential that Belize has to tap into that Central American market.
Absolutely.
And just yesterday, I believe we were talking about the duality that Belize has, being a part of CARICOM and also a part of Central America as well. Do you believe that we take advantage enough of our Central American identity, being the only English-speaking country in this region?
I think in the past we haven't been as engaged, and I say that even from the private sector. You know, we haven't been as engaged as we are now. You know, part of those regional committees in terms of the decision making of, you know, whom we're bringing into the destination as agents or as press. I think it has allowed us to really seek more opportunities for Belize and for our stakeholders. Through the region, we just also had our certification that we're going to be rolling out this year, which is a service-based certification. It's a regional certification for frontline and management. And so we're very, very happy about that. There's also other certifications that we're looking at through the Ministry of Tourism for hotel quality and standards, right? And so all of these are important because when travelers are coming into the destination, they're expecting a level of service and a level of quality. And so we have to work together to ensure that the industry is prepared, and so all of these are things that we're looking at this year. And so, like I said, I feel that being a part of Central America really does give us a huge advantage in terms of knowing what's going on, and we're next door. Like you said, it's not only the Central American traveler that can come in, but also the international Europeans that are coming in. There are places like Guatemala, Honduras, they all have long-haul flights from Europe. So instead of us going and reinventing the wheel, it's taking advantage of what is there and really building multi-destination packages, allowing those travelers to visit more than one destination at a time.
Adding to that, if my memory serves me correctly, attending the Central American tourism market last year, I remember one of the points of discussions was the free movement within this region and perhaps some of the red tapes that still exist where travelers in Central America, whether you live in Central America or you simply want to experience the region as a package is concerned, there are some challenges when it comes to borders and moving freely. Is that something that's still on the table that's being discussed, and are there any solutions being put forward?
Absolutely. Right now there are countries like, for example, Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala that have been working towards the CA4, which is the free border access for local, and the focus of that is really to have cross-border tourism also. I don't believe Belize has been signed on to it, but if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard the Minister of Immigration the other day speaking about issuing the border cards over to Guatemalans. That is a good step, because similarly to the Mexican side, when those cards were issued and when the fees were removed, we saw an increase in the number of Mexicans coming in. And so that allows us to start to tap into the regional markets. And right now, I feel it is important to start to look at these emerging markets simply because of what's going on in the U.S., right? You wake up one morning, you don't know what's going on, right? And so I think that our biggest market for Belize is and continues to be the U.S. market, but we can't solely be dependent on that. There is the Canadian market. We have direct flights coming in also from Canada right now. And so, the flight from Montreal, for example, on Air Canada, that does a same-day connection from Europe to Belize. And so we have to start to maximize these things and really start to look at the outside markets. And so this year we are teaming up with the Belize Tourism Board, and we're going to be giving training to hoteliers to prepare them for these emerging markets.
What has been your observation in terms of visitors coming and having a growing interest in purchasing property and real estate in Belize, and does that help or hurt the industry ultimately?
I think real estate is something that is available throughout the country. You can't deny the fact that we have some really amazing destinations. Corozal, for example, is known for a lot of expats coming in and buying homes and staying there. But what has happened, and one of the things that we have to be very careful also, is the Airbnbs. These are converted then into Airbnbs, and if they're not registered with the Belize Tourism Board, then that impacts the hotelier who is paying their taxes towards the industry. And so those are some of the challenges I feel we have when it comes to the real estate part of it, the Airbnbs and how they are impacting the overall numbers. In my recent visits to San Pedro and also to Hopkins, one of the things that I kept on hearing from some of the hoteliers is that, we're seeing the numbers increase, because right now we have, I think last year we closed off with about 550,000 overnight stays. But some hotels are not seeing the numbers.
Right.
So, when we got into the conversation, that exactly happened. Is it that the Airbnbs are taking over? Are travelers more looking for Airbnbs?
Well,
So how do you monitor that?
Well, in many cases, just an observation, Airbnbs tend to have competitive prices, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, and not only the prices, also the accommodations, you tend to have a bit more flexibility as a visitor
Yeah.
with an entire apartment and kitchen, etc., at a cheaper price. Is it that hotels need to essentially step up their game to compete with Airbnb versus Airbnbs having to tone down their offering so that hotels can get a piece of the pie?
Also, how do you monitor that? Figure out who's using their property as Airbnbs?
Well, I know that there's ongoing work through the Ministry of Tourism, BTB, to really sort of make sure that everybody who has an Airbnb is registered. It is a tedious process because you have to be on the ground constantly, and I know that they have processes in place that they utilize to make sure that they're tracking these things. But I think going back to what you mentioned, one of the interesting things that came out from some of the visits that we did is that we heard that more and more properties are really moving into an all-inclusive. Right, so they're putting more value for the traveler now coming in because of that, right? I mean, you wouldn't expect a hotel to reduce their prices but adding value and making it important, that is what I think is where the industry is driving. I was surprised because I know a couple of years ago, all-inclusives in Belize was not part of what we offered. And so when we were in Hopkins particularly, there were several properties that said, I have an all-inclusive package. Oh, I'm considering all-inclusive because that hotel was doing it and it seems as if though it's working. And so I think the value added and within the value added that they're adding is the activities, the tours, right? And so all of these things I think will really sort of at some point or the other attract the traveler to go that direction rather than doing it on their own, because you sort of run the risk also if you don't know where you are, or you don't know, whom to call or connect, for certain activities.
Does the industry really need local tourism when it's the foreign visitors that are essentially, based on my observation, and I could be wrong, spending the money? They're the ones buying the week stays, the 2 weeks vacations, going on the tours, spending on the food at the hotel. Is the local tourism market really an essential in the scope of the tourism ministry here in Belize?
Absolutely. You'd be surprised to know that there are hotels that their primary market is the U.S. and the secondary market is the Belize market. Meaning that that there are a lot of Belizeans traveling on weekends. I mean, it might not be 5 days stay, but it would be a 2-3 night stay over the weekends.
Which goes a long way.
Right, which goes a long way because they fill the gaps in terms of, where we're losing ground in terms of travelers not coming from the U.S. because of what's going on. And so the local market really plays an important role for a lot of hotel properties here. And I think if we continue to foster that and continue to offer Belizeans better rates, I think we would be able to also really balance it off using our local market. When Easter comes, a lot of Belizeans leave the country to go outside, especially into the Riviera Maya.
Cheaper.
Right. So, I mean, and I think that during the Easter is also somewhat of a high peak season in Belize, so our prices are not as low as it should be. But still, I think that if we take the time outside of that also, even in the summer, which is the low period for Belize, and really get to know your destinations, get to know the activities that are going on, I think that plays a very important role and can help us within the industry also.
So what's the vision that you laid out when you first took up this role, and how are you seeing that vision not only evolve but realized?
Well, when we had initially started off, like I mentioned, there's a lot of things that we have not been doing as an association, and so one of the first things that we've tried to work towards is the engagement with our public-private sector, because at the end of the day, we can't do it on our own, and we definitely need public sector to be on our side for us to be able to start that discussion to see where certain changes will be made. That has been working extremely well for us, and we continue to reach out to the different ministries. In fact, we'd be partnering with the Ministry of Health quite soon in terms of training that they will have for food and beverage managers, right? And so those types of relationships, I think, are key for us to be able to continue to grow the way we want. But more so also now going on to the destinations, one of the key things also that we're looking at is training. There's a lot of training that has not been going on. In Punta Gorda, for example, they were asking us for housekeeping training, right? And so all of these things are things that we are outlining. So we will have like a calendar for the entire year of trainings that we will be rolling out in different areas: customer service, the basic waiter trainings. We'll have housekeeping, and also the collaboration that we'll be doing with Ministry of Health and also with BTB in terms of, teaching these hoteliers and tour operators what to do and how to expect to work with the emerging markets. I think a lot of properties in Belize somewhat don't work with a lot of the regional agencies because of the language barrier also, right? And I think that more and more these agents are English speaking now, so it makes it easier. But the demographics are different. The profile of the traveler, either Central American, European, or even Mexican, are totally different than the US market. And so understanding those are important for them, because then they'll be able to really create packages and pricing that suits these particular markets at particular seasons also, right? And so those are some of the key things that I think we'll be focusing on this year, which is training, the marketing. With this year again, we'll be participating in the Central American travel market. That's the first week in October in Guatemala City. And we have one that we're also going to be working with Mundo Maya, which is the Mundo Maya trade show. It's called the Kiwik. Will be held in Yucatan this year. So we'll continue to work on those to make sure that we're offering as much as we can to the industry, providing them with necessary tools.
All right. Well, my final question is, what are your expectations for tourism here in Belize in 2026, and do you believe that we are set to meet those targets?
I think we're pretty much on the right path. And the reason I say that is because there has been, just in 2024, we saw an increase in terms of airlifts also. And I know that the Ministry of Tourism and BTB are continuing to work on other areas to improve on that. So I think from those, the numbers will certainly increase. And from our part, I think that once we're able to really provide the industry with the tools and really look at these key challenges that they're having, I think we're poised to meet targets, certainly.
All right.
Excellent.
Efren Perez, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on the couch, and we wish you guys all the best.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Keep up the great work, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we take a quick break now, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, our next conversation is creating fairer markets through competition policy development.